facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park and have been made possible in part by Ravinia Festival, CJE, Senior Life, GAN Music and Sound.
And welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. And today we have a very special guest. And I am so happy I finally got her to come to our show, because I've been thinking about doing a show like this for quite a long time, and today we are doing it. And it's called Allergy Safe Travel. I have the former journalist and TV producer of Channel 2, and that's coming today to talk about allergy safe travel. And I just want to read to you just a little bit about Amy Wicker, who is from Naperville and has a fear of flying, but she does not have a fear of her flying, but the reason you have a fear of flying is because of your daughter, whose name is Elise, has severe allergies, especially to peanuts and other nuts also, which they do serve on the airline. Some of us don't get it because we're not in first class, but a lot of first class people do get it, and they're warm. They're not even cold nuts. They're warmed up for these passengers. And because of that, Elise could experience an anaphylactic shock, which I will also read for 1 second. What is an anaphylaxis? It is a severe, potentially life-threatening allergic reaction. It can occur within seconds or minutes of exposure to something you're allergic to, such as peanuts. And what happens is that the signs and symptoms include rapid, weak pulse, a skin rash, nausea and vomiting, and which are common triggers of an anaphylaxis, which includes certain foods and medications as well. And it requires immediate emergency department and injection of epinephrine. And if you're on an airplane, this could be severely, it could result into death. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about, and that is the reason Amy is on the show today to talk about. And welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Susanna. I appreciate you having me on.
And I'm very happy that you are on, because you could really clear some of this up for us, because we really don't know what exactly can happen. And a lot of us don't even think about it.
Right.
We just eat peanuts. We eat candy bars that have peanuts in it, not realizing how deadly this could be for our children.
Right. And you know, the numbers of individuals who have nut allergies, whether it's to peanuts or tree nuts, continues to grow. So what we are trying to do, and the point of allergy safe travel, is we're trying to make it easier for people with severe food allergies like my daughter to travel. Flying is one of the most difficult things to do, because as a parent of a child with food allergies, we try to control their environment as much as possible. We always try to anticipate what are we going to come into contact with and how are we going to handle it. But when you step on board a flight, you have no idea what you're going to be faced with. So, you know, you may step on a plane and you may get a flight crew that's very accommodating. They're willing to do whatever they can to help you stay safe. You may get on a flight and they tell you to go take a hike to get off the plane. So we have experienced kind of both scenarios. And, you know, I will say 4 years ago, my daughter did have a reaction on board a flight. An older couple, they were sitting 3 rows ahead of us. They opened a can of mixed nuts. Those mixed nuts became airborne. She inhaled those nuts and she started to have a reaction. So I was able to see it, I smelled it, and then I looked at her and I could see that she was starting to experience an allergic reaction. So I immediately called the flight attendant
when you
over.
saw the allergic reaction, what was the allergic reaction that she was having?
Fortunately, I caught it early enough. So we had drippy eyes, we had watery nose. She started to, her breathing started to be off a little bit. And for my daughter, and this is what I tell everybody, in terms of food allergies, no two allergies are alike, no two reactions are alike. So you may have people out there that say, oh, nobody could die from exposure to nuts on a flight. You know, that's not, you can't say things like that because allergies are unpredictable, reactions are unpredictable. So for her, you know, she has asthma. So when you have asthma and allergies, it puts you at higher risk for anaphylaxis. So, you know, we got the nuts put away very quickly. I gave her Benadryl. I pulled out my EpiPens. We were using the inhaler. And we got the reaction under control pretty quickly. Now, you know, and at that point in time,
we were
35,000 feet in the air. And this is at
yeah.
9:30 in the morning. You know, I didn't expect that nuts were going to be an issue at 9:30 in the morning. And then 2 years ago, we tried to fly again, and I asked the flight attendant, I said, what are you serving, and what are you serving in first class? Because we now have a situation where we have a couple of airlines, they continue to serve warm nuts to their first class passengers, and at that time, they were warming almonds in the back of the plane, cashews in the front of the plane. And
why would they be warming? I mean, I like cold nuts. I mean, why would they be warming nuts?
It's a gourmet kind of thing. And nuts are inexpensive, and it's considered a gourmet item.
And if you remember, when you're warming something, it is going through the heating and the air-conditioned ducts.
And we know that when you warm a food, those food proteins become airborne that much faster. So you not only have packages, when you open a package, when you're on a pressurized flight and you open a package, those nut proteins aerosolize that much faster. And then when you put them in a microwave and warm them up, they are going to aerosolize again that much faster. So, you know, we have to be very careful when we fly. So I've been working with the airlines, and we're building a coalition now in Washington, D.C. to try to get a better handle on what happens when you step on board a flight. I think we need clear policies from the airlines about what they're willing to do and not willing to do, so that we can make better choices on which airline we can fly.
And they should probably do it on every airline. Should be the same. It should be like, instead of having, like I think you said, American does one thing and Southwest does another thing. There should be a broad policy of what is and what can't, so every airline has the same thing, especially with medical problems. I remember, I think I told you earlier, I was aboard an airline going out of the country, and what happened was I heard, which I thought was a little baby, crying behind me, and it turned out to be a cat. Somebody board, and this is a 17-hour flight that I'm on. I'm not on a 2-hour flight. I'm on a 17-hour flight, and they had a cat, and I'm highly allergic to cats. And I told the flight attendant at the time, can I sit? I saw another seat on the other end. It was at that time, it was one of those jumbo jets. So I saw at the corner of my eye, there was another seat, and she said, no, you have to stay where you are. I have some suitcases that I need to keep there. And I said, fine, keep your suitcases there, and within a half an hour you're going to have to land this plane because I'm going into an anaphylactic shock. And I didn't have any EpiPen or anything because I didn't expect a cat on the plane. I don't have I do have some food allergies, but not to the extent of food allergies your daughter has. But I am highly allergic to cats. I mean, I would never think in a million years they would, once in a while they may have a dog where it's for people that have difficulty seeing. We used to call them seeing eye dogs. Now they're called other dogs for other different disabilities. But a cat, why would a cat be on an airplane?
I think the airlines, I almost think we treat our pets better in this country than we do people with food allergies or allergies, because I was sitting next to a woman, and I did not have my daughter with me at the time, but I was on a flight and she brought her dog with her, and we have problems with dogs and cats, and that is a concern of ours as well. And she said, it's so easy now to bring your pet on board. You just have to go to your doctor and tell them that you have some emotional distress when you fly, and you feel much better when you have your pet along, and they will write a letter for you so that you can bring your pet on board the flight. And it is a problem, and the airlines need to try to find the right balance. If you're going to have pets on board, they need to be in the back of the plane, or you've got to find a way so that you can accommodate the flying public who has those types of sensitivities, and those numbers just keep growing and growing.
Right. I mean, they should have the pets underneath, except for, somebody that has trouble seeing. And you're right. Those days, they used to have maybe a seeing eye dog. We used to call them seeing eye dogs those days. And they would be in the last seat, in the last row. Right. Exactly. Because they may have to, use the facilities or something which was way in the back.
Right.
And so they did do that. But now it seems like they're not accommodating their clientele. And they're doing what they want to do. And that is absolutely not correct. You were talking about also organizations that you're first of all, you have a site. It's a blog. Is that what it is?
You know what? It's a database. It's an online resource for individuals with food allergies. So if you have a food allergy and you need to travel, let's say to San Diego, for example, you can go to my website, click on San Diego, California, and up will come the information that you need to travel there. So we're building this database up. We have hotels with kitchens, so if you need to prepare your own foods. We have medical facilities in case you need to find a facility quickly if you have a reaction. Health food stores where you can find your safe foods, and restaurants that may accommodate. So we're slowly building this database out, but we really want it to be a one-stop shop for people. So typically when we travel, I spend hours just researching where we can stay, where is the kitchen, where can we find our safe foods. So that in and of itself is a very long process just to get to the point where you can walk out the door.
You have to, and I said earlier, you need like a Frommer's type book, where he writes where to go in San Diego, where to go in Atlanta. You need to have a book out there, and it has all the different states and where people could go to, the hotels in each state, and I mean more like in the cities that are more popular, like New Orleans and New York, and these are the type of places what hotels that would accommodate you, because also when you go to a hotel, I mean there's certain hotels that allow pets, and I always thought that maybe the pets were only in certain rooms, but I found out sometimes the pets aren't only in certain rooms. People take their pets. So if I have a cat allergy or somebody has a dog allergy and you're in that room right after, that's your room, and who was in that room? Did they, nowadays you can't smoke. Once in a while, I do smell cigarette smoke too, on rooms that say no cigarettes, non-smoking.
Right.
You got to be very careful. Do you bring your own sheets? What are some of the things that people can do?
We just ran into this problem over New Year's because we took our children and we drove to Charleston, South Carolina, and so I found this great, what I thought was a great hotel. They were suites, full kitchens. They put us on the main floor for the first night, and as soon as we walked in the door, there was kibble on the floor. So clearly a dog had been in the room. So we were in this room for 15 minutes, and my daughter started wheezing. The hotel was sold out. So fortunately, we drove on that trip, and I brought a small air purifier. Pretty powerful air purifier. So we put the air purifier in the room, and I loaded her up on medication, and we made it through that one night. The next day they moved us to another room that had been cleaned. So typically we do travel with our own sheets, our own pillows. I bring the air purifier because that really seems to help us. And if I go, and I had no idea this hotel was as pet friendly as it was. So that was an eye-opening experience for us. But
so you have to really go to hotels that are no pets allowed.
Exactly. But that's hard to find.
Not just pet-friendly.
Right, but it's very hard to find hotels that are completely pet-free because everybody wants to accommodate. Our pet. We want to accommodate our pet owners, but we still have this segment of the population who has problems. So, every time I go in and I talk to a hotel, I say, okay, do me a favor. When you're remodeling, set aside 6 to 8 rooms as your allergen-free rooms. Call them allergen-friendly or allergen-free, where no pets are allowed. Make them nut-free. Encourage people to eat their nuts in the lobby or somewhere else, but just make it clear that we're trying to keep these rooms safe for people who really need it, right?
So maybe some of the machines, sometimes you go into a room and they have a refrigerator that's filled with drinks, and alcohol drinks and pop and and candies, and maybe their candies could be allergy free, when no nuts. They could be just chocolates, and I mean there's so much different types of candy. You do not have to have candies with nuts in them.
Right, you don't.
So that would be one of the things to advocate for.
Right.
If they do have vending machines in the room.
Absolutely.
Which I think is very, very important. Some of these allergies, and I was just wondering about it, you're hearing more and more about allergies, and I don't remember so much of this when I was growing up. And you feel that maybe we're becoming too clean? Where are these food allergies coming from? And are we introducing foods too late to children? And and we also talked about a little bit of the GMOs, which is the genetically modified things that are coming into play too, where they're feeding the cattle all these hormones, and it's getting into our food contents, and all kinds of things are happening. I think I mentioned that young girls are developing much too early, and little kids are looking more like women. If you go to high schools, these girls look like 20-year-olds, and some of them look like 30-year-olds. And here they are; they're just teenagers, and they look so much older. A lot of them look like some of my friends do. I can't believe it. And these are high school kids. Yeah. And I think a lot of this is happening because we're modifying our foods. What are some of the things that that you think by introducing foods, and what are you doing about allergies? People that have allergies, how can we, how do you go about maybe getting them used to certain foods?
Well, first of all, I think people have allergies for different reasons. I think there are multiple causes. I think genetics play a role. I think viruses can play a role. I know I was a member of a support group in Champaign, Illinois, when we were living in Champaign. There were 4 or 5 of us sitting down talking about our children and how, food allergies, food intolerances do run in my family. But we were all comparing notes, and all of our children who had anaphylactic reactions to foods all had a virus as infants called RSV, and it's a very serious upper respiratory infection which essentially wipes out the immune system. So our virus is playing a role. Is it we are too clean? I think we're still trying to gather the data, but I think for different people it can be different reasons, different causes of those allergies. And for us, we are trying to get her in a place where she might be able to tolerate things. We're actually going through a process called SLIT, or sublingual oral immunotherapy, where they put drops under your tongue several times a day to slowly desensitize the body to those food proteins so that she won't be as reactive as she is.
It's sort of like allergy shots.
It is very much like allergy shots.
But they don't have shots at this point, like I know they have dog and cat shots.
For environmental issues.
Yes.
Yes.
What about, do they have like peanuts and tree nuts? Do they have shots for that?
They don't have shots for that. They've got, they're working on a peanut patch, which the skin, so it slowly absorbs into the system. They're doing the sublingual oral immunotherapy, which they've seen positive results out of both of these things. They're also looking into the effectiveness of Chinese herbs. And I took Chinese herbs years ago for a food intolerance and some allergies, and I found it very effective for myself. Now, it's not to say everybody's going to react the same way to all of these different treatment plans.
What's in herbs that can to lessen?
There are different types of roots and things that the Chinese use to treat allergies, and I can't give you the names of those herbs. Actually, I couldn't even pronounce them, but they've been shown to be pretty effective. And one of the top food allergy research groups in the country is out at Mount Sinai in New York, and they're doing a study right now on Chinese herbs. So I definitely think we're moving in the right direction in terms of how we can treat and how we can mitigate it so people aren't dying from from their food reactions.
Isn't that interesting? Because Eastern culture is one of the first medicines that have been around, and people I remember, they used to, when you talk to your doctor years ago, they say, oh, that's just, it's just silly, or just, it doesn't make any. And my son, who is a general surgeon, and he was talking about, he used to take allergy shots, and he used to take medicines for his allergies, and is finding that, he said that he's doing he's doing the herbs, and he's doing, and they're starting to educate doctors where they never used to. They used to think they were silly, they were nonsense. It was just something that they made money with.
Yep.
And here it is. It's something that grandparents, used to tell you, do this and do that. Some of your grandma's recipes or remedies are really working. And the Chinese seem to have it together, because I remember going for acupuncture or acupressure years ago, and he was telling me about all these herbs, and I wasn't thinking, oh, herbs, I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And here it is coming to pass that some of these are really working.
Right, and it's very exciting. I mean, if you don't like taking medicine, and I don't like giving my daughter medication every day, and the benefit of having something like a Chinese herb to treat an allergy is you're not continuously exposing them to that allergen, right? So that's one of the benefits of having an herb or something like that to help treat the allergy without continually exposing them to the allergen.
We were also talking about airplanes, but what about schools? Your daughters go to school, and our children go to school, and kids they come home, or they go to school with little packages of things that have nuts in it. How children love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. What does she do at school when the kids are eating their peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Because I remember that's what we all used to love to eat,
Well, it's interesting because we have a challenge today. Well, first of all, she's anaphylactic to milk, eggs, and all nuts. So she sits at a table that is nut-free and that is milk-free. And the school tries to be nut-free. They have signs up saying we are nut aware, we try to be nut-free. So the children are really discouraged from bringing products that contain peanuts or peanut butter to school. Mm-hmm. But there are so many alternatives now to peanut butter. We have soy butter, we have sun butter. My daughter has we call it pea butter. It's made with golden peas. So when kids bring those things to school and sit down, you can't tell the difference between peanut butter, sun butter, soy butter. So that makes it a little challenging. But it's interesting because at my daughter's school, it's a small private school, 10% of the children at her school carry EpiPens.
So she has people to sit down with at the
She
table.
Does. She does.
And so she doesn't feel alone.
Exactly.
And she doesn't feel like,
Exactly.
I'm
Right.
the only one that has this. And I can't have what everybody else is getting.
Right. And so the children at this school are all very aware of the nut allergic and of the food allergic children. And I think the school handles it very well. The reason why we have her at a private school is because they have a nurse full-time in that school. I didn't feel comfortable sending her to a public school because they didn't have a full-time nurse. So I found a school with a full-time nurse.
That's interesting. And also, what about like birthday parties? When she goes to a birthday party, that's another thing, with kids.
She takes her own stuff all the time. I tell parents, don't even try to accommodate her, because for her, any trace amount of dairy sends her into anaphylaxis. In addition to the nuts,
like ice cream,
pizza, cheese, anything like that.
I mean, these are what kids like. Talking about peanut butter and jelly, ice cream, pizza. Right. I mean, these are kid food that that children like, and then she's not able to participate with it. So do you bring, if everybody they're having ice cream and cake? Somebody bring? You have a different ice cream that you bring for her?
I bring her coconut milk ice cream, and we do all of her baking at our house. Mm-hmm. So, and I put everything in the freezer, so whenever I need something like that, I pull it out and we're ready to go. So, hindsight is 20/20, but I really should have gone to culinary school.
You still can.
I should have because really our world does revolve around foods and preparing safe foods for her.
Because our world is mostly going to restaurants,
Right. It's true.
I mean, look at a lot of our grocery stores are not there anymore. Grocery stores that we've had for years, one by one, is leaving us. Mm-hmm. And I think, as my husband puts it, he says because most of us don't like to, we go to restaurants, they don't think it's necessary to have grocery stores anymore. Right. Just somewhere somewhere, maybe like our pharmacies are now they have milk and ice cream and stuff like that. He says pretty soon that's all people are going to have because they go to they eat out so much. You know, we started with talking about flying with allergies, and I just like to, when people are planning a trip, I think it's important to get some of the, you know, we have just a little bit of time left, and I like to talk a little bit going back because I am waiting for your book to be published. I think it's going to be a great book because you need to take all these cities. You're going to be the frommers of allergies.
I love it. Good.
And one of these that I was reading, it says, talk to your child's allergist about any special precautions you may need to take. Make sure prescriptions are up to date, a letter stating that you need to carry certain medications and special foods when you travel, because a lot of things, you know, they take them away, like your water, they take away, you know, certain foods that this way you have to they have to have these foods when you travel. What do you do so they don't take away, like if you need a certain kind of yogurt or if you have a certain thing, you know, like they take away our water, what do you do?
There's no question that you have to fly with a doctor's note that says, you know, due to her sensitivity level and her food allergies, she has to travel with her own food. And one of the words that I use a lot of times with people, and they seem to get it instantly, I say it's medically necessary for her to have her own food. If she doesn't have her own food, and you know, we could have a medical emergency if you don't allow us to bring this food in. And most people at the bigger tourist destinations have been trained. Security, they've been trained somewhat. Not everybody, but I think we're getting there. But when I say it's medically necessary for her to have her own food, they seem to cooperate with that. And then I, of course, have the letter from the doctor, which helps.
Good. So people should get a medical letter from their doctor and talk to, ahead of time, they talk to the airlines and talk to somebody that's in charge, because that's very important, because you don't want to go on and they say, well, I didn't say that, you know, where do you get that? So maybe the airlines also could supply something for you too as well. And if and also you need to review the online allergy policies of the airlines when you fly to your destination.
It's always good to go look to see. Now, the airlines don't want to tell you too much because they don't want to make any guarantees or any promises they won't be able to, any promises they may not be able to keep. But it does give you an idea, you know, about what they may be willing to do. So it's definitely a good idea to check that. And we do have that information on our website as well.
Okay, and it says to call potential airlines that clarify the policies, and you have to make sure that in first class, because we don't get this in coach, in first class, that they aren't actually going to warm up loose mixed nuts in the kitchen area. So that's really important. And if you know they're going to do it, then you don't go on that airline.
I can tell you, if we have a quick second, we had a situation come up last fall where the United Airlines created a buffer zone for us, which was fabulous. But they continued to sell off of their cart to the main cabin I believe it was like a granola mixture or a trail mix, and it had cashew